Hi guys, and welcome to my retro watches. I have a little black box in front of me that says DIY Watch Club. Says exactly what it is. It's a do-it-yourself watch kit. Now, if you're a regular to the channel, you may have seen this before because I built one of their watches, and more recently they sent me the hand bluing kit, which was absolutely brilliant. I really enjoyed doing that, and I can't wait to actually do it on another restoration. I've got to find a watch that needs hands to be blued, and then I can show you that product yet again. So they are back with a new one, and this one is a GMT, because let's face it, since Seiko released their new GMT models, it seems like the whole world has gone mad for GMTs, and DIY Watch Club included. Now, I'm always going to support this company, and there's one simple reason why. They provide a kit with all the tools and everything required to build a watch yourself, and it is quite simple. It's not building a movement, it's just fitting dials and hands, but some of that stuff is tricky for the beginner. And I know a lot of you guys who are watching, you might like to watch this sort of videos, but you might think, I can't do any of that myself. Well, you can, and this is a way to start. They are relatively inexpensive. You can choose loads of different dials and parts. It's so cool like that, so you can make something unique if you want, and at the end of it, as long as you follow the instructions right, you're going to have a working watch that you're going to be really proud of. And then it might lead to this. This is what happened to me. I restored one watch back in 2016, and the rest is history. Well, 5 years later on, thousands and thousands of pounds spent on tools, thousands of pounds spent on watches, thousands and thousands of hours enjoying this hobby, and now bringing the hobby to you guys as well. And it can all start with little acorns like this. So we're going to build this watch using the tools that they provided. I'm going to show you the toolkit in just a moment, and then we'll see how we get on, how easy or difficult it is, and then of course the end product. So please stick around for this one, and let's get to the bench. So the last video I did for DIY Watch Club was the hand bluing kit, and I recommend you watching that video if you haven't already. I'll leave a link above right now. That was absolutely epic. I never thought I could do that at home, and it was really good fun. And they are always pushing the envelope. This came with the last kit, and this was their deluxe toolbox, and this is a nice plush box. Press the button here, and it's got everything you need to build the watch. You've got a little mat, so you can, if you haven't got a bench mat, of course you can use that. We have a case knife, a pair of tweezers. We've got some hand levers here. These are hand pushers as well. A cushion, a case back opener, a blower, and of course a loop. And in one of the compartments underneath, there is also a wire for this, because this has got a clip on it for glasses, like I'm a glasses wearer, so that's good for me. But if you wanted to wear a head wire, that's also included. So all the bits and pieces you need, like I say, including a bit of Rodico and some finger cots, a dial protector, and a little polishing cloth as well. So everything is covered. Also has absolutely brilliant, and I will say this, brilliant video tutorials on to how to build each of their products. I'm going to put a few clips of them up now because they are excellent, very good English, very well presented, much better than anything I could produce, certainly for how to fit hands, because that is such a hard thing to teach, and they nail it in their video of how to do it for the amateur and the beginner. So let's push on, let's get this out the way, get all the parts out, and start having a closer look at this watch. Right, so I've unpacked all the main parts for the watch, and you can see instantly with that particular bezel the look we're going for on this one. That's very much a Pepsi bezel from a very well-known prestigious brand, should we say. So it's going for that kind of look, but of course it's got a different dial, and being DIY Watch Club, everything is customizable. So there are different variations of this watch with different bezels. No doubt you can get different dials and different hands too, because everything can be interchanged. We have a bit of a sandwich dial going on here. I've never worked on one of those before, so that should be quite interesting. We have 2 GMT hands, and we have 2 of every other hand in this plastic here. So we've got 2 hour hands, 2 minute hands, 2 second hands, which is great, because the last thing you want to do if you've never done watchmaking before, like I say, the hands are always the trickiest thing to do, and you can go wrong and you could knacker something up, and if you did, you'd be gutted. So these guys have thought ahead and they sent you spares as well, so that's fantastic. We got a nice rubber strap for it, and of course there is the Seiko movement, which is already pre-built. There's a few things we've got to do to it, but in the main, going to be, certainly for me, fairly straightforward. But I'm going to take you through step by step. We're going to use every tool that DIY Watch Club would supply with this, so I'm not going to use any of my own things, and that way it's going to make the review fair. So of course, I've got to start off on the microscope, and because I was interested in having a look, or a closer look, at the GMT function in particular. So we're on the dial side. You can see here the calendar wheel and a few of the jewels there, look. All very nice, all very reminiscent of Seiko, of course. But what we're concentrating on is what we can see in the middle of the screen here. And this is basically, underneath here, there's another wheel. And that is your hour wheel, and this is your GMT wheel. So the GMT hand will sit on this, and then the hour hand will sit on here, and the minute hand sits on that ring. And then in the very center, which you can't really see, of course, is the center seconds pivot. So how does it work? So I'm going to get the crown, and if there's the first position basically. So when I'm pulling out the crown, I'll pull it to first position, and you can see if I go anti-clockwise, it's not doing anything. Clockwise, it engages those two wheels, and that clicks every hour. So you're going to get 24 clicks per rotation, and that's to set the time, or to set the GMT hand. So it's just basically sitting on top of the hour wheel, as I understand it, and there's just ratios of the gears to make this top one rotate once every 24 hours, and obviously the bottom one's going to rotate every 12 hours. So fairly straightforward, as long as I've got that right, because I've never worked on a GMT watch before, or actually seen one close up like this. It's interesting to see Seiko's movements nowadays. This is a very modern movement, of course. I can see some plastic parts, which I'm not the biggest of fan of, but there you go, that's what it is. And this one in particular looks interesting in its pattern, its finish. So they go into thinner steel by the looks of things, not like the nice 70s Seikos that I'm very much fond of and work on considerably. But there we go, that's how the GMT function will work. Of course, if I then pull it out to time setting mode, you will see that they both rotate. So you can set the hours, and as you're setting the hours, that GMT hand is also going to rotate. And of course, we'll see that once we've built the movement. So let's get started with this build. So first of all, I've kept the movement crown and stem in it. Obviously it needs the proper one, which is included in the case. Don't know if you can see that there, but for now, just so we set the hands and things, we'll leave that one in because that's fine. And we need to fit the dial washer, and that's always going to fit, he says, always going to fit over so the bend is facing upwards, so it acts as a bit of a spring. And that's just obviously to keep the dial from pressing on the gears there. Now I'm also using their tweezers. They're very good tweezers, but like anything, I'm so used to my own tweezers. I've got some Dumont ones, and I do everything with those. I've got a feel for them, and these feel really weird to me because they're not my usual ones. So now the dial washer is on, we've got to get the dial, and then we've got the sandwich dial part to go with it, and I can't pick it up. There we go. So I've got my finger cots on as well, and I'm going to try and bring this, if I move the movement out of the way. So I've got to marry these two up. You've got dial feet. So you're going to put the dial feet through each hole. Very easy to do, not very easy to film. Now on all of these type of Seikos, it's just a friction fit. So you've got to locate the two dial feet into the movement, and it's really easy to do because this has got a date window. You're just going to line the date window up with the stem. And then slowly but surely you can get that and press it into position. Like so. Now this one has got a few flecks of dust on it, and that's where the blower is going to come in, and equally the Rodico. So that is quite straightforward, let's face it. That's nice and easy. Now to fit the first hand is going to be the GMT hand, and there's a trick to this, and I didn't actually know. I had to actually watch their video. I've never worked on a GMT before, and you do wonder how to fit the GMT hand. So what it tells you to do is I've got to wind the movement on until the date clicks over. So I'm setting it just there. Now it's clicked into place, and with that I'm going to get the GMT hand and set it at 12 o'clock. I just need to rotate everything for my eyes. As I say, hands are not easy to set for the beginner, and when you've got this one as well, it has a special tool. It's just a normal hand pusher really, but it's got a bigger hole in the end because you've got to clear the hour and minute, I forgot what you call them now, but where the hour and minute hands are going to go on. And the idea is to come down nice and straight. And I think I'm a little tiny bit off 12 o'clock, but I might have to redo this in a little while. I'm also noticing some marks, which aren't really marks, they're just not scratches, they're just something on the end of the plastic pusher there. So once you've got that GMT hand on, you need to then wind it on to 6 o'clock. Now with a GMT hand you've got two settings, so you've got the GMT setting function or you've got the hand setting function, and it is important that you put it in the hand setting function. So we are still in that at the moment, so we will rotate that down to 6. Now this might feel really weird, it did to me, because you think, well, if it's gone to 6, how on earth is when you're going to put the hour hand, is the date going to change over? But we'll persevere and we'll see. So now it's time for the hour hand in this stack. And it's important to get that all lined up too. Now when you're fitting hands you need to be looking as well, so you'd pick the movement up and you'd look across and down, looking to see if they're parallel. If they're sticking up in any position, then you can sort of slightly manipulate the tool side to side to get them right. Obviously we've got a 4-hand stack to do here, so the gap is really, really important. So now if we go back to that position, I am now going to wind this on. And as you can see, the GMT does one rotation every 24 hours. There you go, you see the hands, it's not quite at 12 because of the way I did it to start with, but the hands will change at the right time. So it is a little bit of magic, that, to be honest. So again, there obviously is something not quite right with my little plastic tool here, because every time I'm using it I can see marks, and I can see now marks on the hour hand, and they do come off quite easily with the Rodico. So next up is the minute hand. Of course, it's very important that the minute hand also goes on and lines up exactly where you want it. It seems like I've thrown that on and it's pretty much perfect. And again, I'm going to check that, and I can see, I'm not sure that's going to come out in the camera, just see if I can do it. If I bring it up, you can see that the minute hand is sticking right up in the air. So I'd put the pusher on it, and I'm going to bring it down like that. It's still a little bit up. Still looks a little bit up, doesn't it? Okay. You don't get the slick performance from me, you just get the crude way of trial and error. So I'm still not happy with that. Look, it's sticking right up. It's probably alright actually, but it is important that they're right, because if you don't get them properly on, you might find that when you put it in the case that the hand, or certainly the second hand, might start fouling on the glass, and then you might think you've got a problem with your watch, but it's just because the hand. So I'm really not all that happy with that. To be fair, I think maybe the hour hand is pointing a little bit up. Try and offer that up to you guys. It still looks like it's sticking up, but it is not too bad. So we'll try it. Now I'm going to put a bit of wind in, because the hard part is always setting that minute hand, the second hand into position. This is where we'll find out if it fouls on the stack, and it might well do. So the minute hand is one of those horrible things to do, certainly when you are learning. For myself, I've done that many of them. They're usually pretty easy. So you can do it one of two ways. You can come up with the tweezers and try and line it up onto the post, or you could stick it to some Rodico and offer it up with the Rodico, and you're just trying to find that center pinion that it sits on. Now then, I'm not liking it because I'm using these tweezers that I really am not used to using. I can feel when it's in position. So what I'm going to try and do is line it up and then push it on. Okay, so for once I'm having problems, and I shouldn't have a problem with a kit like this. So I am really struggling, and this is, well, it's almost embarrassing for me because it never happens, but it does show how tricky hands can be. The problem I'm finding actually is that the tube on the back of the hand seems awfully long, and it doesn't balance on the pivot where they normally do. You can normally just get them on the pivot and kind of leave them there enough to take the tweezers away and then press on, but on this one it doesn't. It always rolls away like that, which presents problems. Because if you've got to hold it in place like I'm trying to do now and push, no, I'm going to get the other hand out. Maybe this hand has got a problem. Okay, I've got the other hand out. Looks like I've got the same problem. I've just corrected the stack again. I took the hour hand off and the minute hand and redid them. So I am in a bit of a dilemma. I've now got my proper tweezers. But if you've watched my videos before, I put second hands on so easily, and normally, like I say, you can just balance them. I can feel the pivot, it's there, and you can balance it on it, but on this watch you can't, and that really does feel far too tight. I mean, it is on, look, there we go, finally, but I'm not over enthusiastic with how it's gone on. So I don't really think that's necessarily a fault of DIY Watch Club. It's to do with the Seiko Movements pivot being so tall. Perhaps these holes on the hands could be opened out just a tiny fraction. But at the moment that is on, and that's good because I don't have to stress about it anymore. I will try and just push it on a bit more. It's always a problem with these movement holders as well, because obviously it's taking some of the impact or the pressure as it sinks into the cushion. But so far, so good. Now we need to make sure the dial is really clean, and that again is using the blower and using a bit of Rodico as well, just to get out any spots that you can see. It's a black dial, and as such, black dials are a nightmare because they show up everything. So I'm going to case the movement now, in preparation really for the last thing to do, which is to fit the bezel. So to case the movement, we're going to have to remove the stem and crown, and there will be a release mechanism on this that I have to see. So there we are. So push the crown in. I'm really not sure if you're going to see this, depends if my camera's focusing. So with the crown in, there's a little button there. You're going to push in that gently and then pull the crown out. So inside the case we find the chapter ring, a spacer and a movement ring, and we have to fit the movement ring first. And again I'm going to line it up with where the crown is going to go. Then the chapter ring has some location pins. I don't know if you can see those. And they go at 6 and 12. So you can see there again that oh, I say you can see, you can't see it on the camera. There we are. So that looks like it's nicely lined up. I'll give it another blow again. And the spacer ring is going to sit on the top like so, and then we can just get the case, make sure that the inside of the case and the glass is removed of any dust. In fact, I can see some on mine now. So I'm just going to drop now the case over the top. Then I'm going to turn it over on the movement cushion, and then you end up with it like this. Once you're in that position, you can get the crown. And I'll turn it back over yet again, just to check the alignment and for dust. So once you're happy with that, and you think that the back is in properly, the movement is in properly, that's when you can then put the case back on, which is what I'll do now, and then we can move on to put in the bezel. There's one important thing I forgot to mention, actually, certainly for you guys who are beginners, if you were doing this. The movement ring here has to go in a certain way, and there's, I don't know if you can see where my tweezers are. So in the case here, which is right opposite the crown, there's just a tiny cutout in the case, and there's a tiny knob, if you like, on the plastic insert. You have to get those two lined up, and you have to sit down. If they don't, then the movement's going to be on the wonk, and then you won't be able to get the case back on. It's a common thing I see on more modern Seikos, and I'm used to doing it, but just thought I'd highlight that there. So just make sure that those are lined up together, and then you are good to go, as I say, to put the case back on. It does come with a gasket, and with me messing around, the gasket actually fell out, but it sits in a recess just in here, and it's best to keep it in that recess before you put the case back on. There we go, like so. And then I can place that on and tighten it up, which is what I'm going to do now. So I think when you get to this point on a watch, the hard work is done. Certainly the hands are always a difficult one, and as you can see, it's now in the case and the hand is not failing on the glass, which is really important. So all we got left to do on this particular watch is fit a bezel, and these have basically a sticky, double-sided sticky thing on there from, there's a 3M tape, I think. I sometimes heat these up a little bit with a hairdryer first before I fit them, and you just peel the back off, line it up, and the best thing to do is click the bezel like we're doing now, and then when you clicked it, make sure if you've got any back wind, back movement like that, that you're just happy with where it is, because what you want to line that up obviously right on 12 o'clock. If you get it slightly wrong, well, you've got to heat it up again quite a lot to soften that glue, and you can try and manipulate it back, because obviously when you're using a bezel, you always have that little tiny bit of movement, so you want to make sure that it is firmly right in the joint, if you like, of when it notches over, and then that way it's 100%, it's going to be okay. So at the start of this video I said that this bezel was a Pepsi one, but it isn't actually, because the top part is black. I didn't notice that in the packaging, it did look quite blue. So I'm going to have to just peel off the top layer of this. I'll use my tweezers. And I'm going to just try to take the top bit off so I can try and get it lined up. I haven't done this too often. There's a bit of concentration for you. But I think that looks pretty good, don't you? Yeah, I'm pleased with how that is lining up, actually. Very good. So it's just a case of putting the strap on now, really, and giving it a bit of wind and taking it outside and showing you what it looks like as the finished project, because that is all you've got to do. And believe you me, if you're doing this for the first time, that's probably going to take you an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Really does depend on your own patience level as well. But at this point you're going to be really happy with yourself, because you've got a working watch that you've built yourself. Okay, here we are outside to show you the watch in the best light available, which of course is daylight. So before I give you the verdict on the watch itself, let me run through the facts and specifications. So the diameter of this watch is 42mm, so it's getting borderline for me on size. But you'll see it on the wrist shortly, and I think you'll agree that it wears quite well. The thickness is 14.4mm, so it is quite a chunky watch. But again, it does not wear like that at all. I've got watches thinner than this that feel more clunky, and I think a lot of it's to do with the fact it's got some very nice curved lugs, and the case back itself sort of just sits in your wrist a lot better. It's hard to explain, but obviously if you were wearing it you would understand, I think. The lug to look is 48.5, so that's acceptable to me. I think anything for my 7-inch wrist that gets up to 50, the lugs are literally hanging off the side of your wrist, which is no good at all. And finally, the lug width is 22mm. The watch has 120 click unidirectional bezel. Also, of course, it's fitted with that ceramic Coke bezel insert that I fitted earlier on. Now, the bezel action, to be honest, it's a little bit clunky. It's okay, it rotates fine. There's just a little bit of backplay on certain occasions, a little bit more than I would like to see. And it just feels a little bit light as well. It could be refined, I think, in future models. I'm not knocking it too much, just that I felt better in other watches. Onwards with more facts then. This watch is fitted with a sapphire crystal, and there is a top hat sapphire crystal available at an extra price if you wanted that. There is a display back, as you've seen. That is just mineral crystal there, but the likelihood of you damaging that, I think, is quite remote. Watch is offering 200 meters of water resistance, which is backed up by a screw down crown. Thing is though, I can't vouch for the water resistance. If you're fitting that case back yourself, there is a risk that you could damage the gasket, or you've not got the gasket in the right place. Some people will tighten it really tight, other people won't do it as tight. So how accurate is it going to be? I just don't know. Perhaps DIY Watch Club have tested that in their R&D, loose fittings and tight fittings. I don't know. I would just do it up quite tight if I was you, and I think it'd probably be okay. New gaskets all round do certainly help to seal. Now then, the case finishing, what can I say about that? It's pretty good. You've got some nice brushing on the sides. You've got like a big sort of chamfer on the lugs, which is highly polished, and then the lugs are brushed as well. Not a sharp edge in place. Very well machined indeed. Cannot fault the case at all. I really do like the shape of this case actually, especially those turn down lugs. Really does make it fit nicely. Onto the movement. So we know now that it's a GMT movement. It's an NH34, which is the new Seiko GMT movement, and it should be like any other Seiko. It should be reliable, robust, and pretty much indestructible. Probably easily replaceable as well if anything does go wrong. Let's put some time grapher shots of it up now. So you can see here on dial up position, it is running absolutely sweet. I am usually quite critical of Seikos out the box, because these newer models, unlike the vintage ones that I restore myself, never seem to run brilliantly on the timographer, but this is certainly giving you a good reading. And then the dial down position, the less stressful test, on the movement, and of course you can see there it is running absolutely brilliantly, way within the Seiko tolerances, which are enormous anyway. So I'm pleased to see that this one is running well. It'll serve you well and keep a very good time. I think the sandwich dial adds to the aesthetic of this watch. I really do like those recessed indices. The indices, the hands and the bezel are loomed with BG Super Luminova, which you can see now. They glow slightly blue. It's one of my favourite looms actually. But then the GMT hand has been loomed with C3, which glows green. And I think that's quite a nice touch because you can actually tell the different time zone even in the middle of the night, as long as your watch has been charged, or the loom has been charged before lights out, of course. So the watch comes on this nice rubber strap you can see on my wrist now. I'm not a massive fan of rubber straps, but this one is very comfortable and it fits really well. And I think that's purely because it's got curves near the lugs which shape around your wrist, and that makes it a lot more comfortable to wear. But it then leads me on to this shot that you can see now. I've put the watch on a mesh bracelet. Now look at the difference that makes. It looks really good, and this is my main gripe with DIY Watch Club, because from what I can see they don't supply any watches with a bracelet option, and I think they're missing a trick. I really do, because most people would want to buy a watch with a bracelet because you can always buy an aftermarket strap, but you can't do the other way around necessarily. It doesn't always find the right bracelet to fit the watch. So come on DIY Watch Club, offer a bracelet option. I think your customers will like it, and I think they will buy it. So what is my opinion? I think this watch speaks for itself. It's a very nice looking thing, and I think most guys would like this, whether it's a gift for somebody or whether it's for a watch collector. The value of making something yourself gives you a sense of achievement that you can follow along to there. I have to say, excellent step-by-step tutorials, and you can't really go wrong. Okay, yes, I did have the issue with the second hand, and that's very unusual for me, but I have to put it down to one, I think the hand tube is possibly a little bit too tight, and equally the NH34 Movements pinion might be just a little bit too tall to what I'm used to as well. So if I struggled, I think some other customers may struggle as well, and that might be a downside to buying the GMT kit, because I haven't seen it in the other two kits that I've done previously, which you will see on screen now. Let's get all the three watches. They are all stunningly beautiful and all completely different, and that's the good thing with this company. They offer something that I don't think anybody else can do. Granted, you can go online and you can buy all these parts and you can assemble it yourself, but that's if you've got some knowledge and some nous to get it all with the tools, with the video instructions in a nice little box. I don't think you can beat it. So, you know, what is the price? So this particular GMT version is 330 UK pounds. That does include a toolkit. It doesn't include the toolkit that I showed you at the beginning, but it's still very much the same tools, just not in a fancy box. You can obviously buy that box should you want to. It'll cost you just a little bit more. So look, if you're looking for a gift for somebody, this could be a good option. If you're looking to try and get into this hobby, again, this could be another good option. Have a look on their website. Click on the link in the description. It is an affiliate link, I will give you that. So if you do buy something, I do get a kickback. I have got a 5% discount code, which is my name, Michael Bolton, like the singer, all capital letters, one word. That will give you an extra 5% at checkout. But have a look at all the different kits that they offer, the different dial options, the different hand options. It is a really good thing to do, a great experience, and you're going to end up with a watch at the end of it. And for that reason alone, I'm always going to keep supporting DIY Watch Club. I can be critical of the products they make, but the idea and the concept is brilliant, and anybody trying to get anyone into this hobby will always get a massive thumbs up from me. Right guys, that's the end of this video, and I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, then please hit that like button. It's in one of the corners somewhere on the screen. Very important, because that way it's going to promote the channel, and that way I can get more people watching the videos, hopefully picking up tools for themselves and trying out this wonderful hobby. Leave your comments below. I tend to read every single one. I try to reply to nearly everyone now if I can. And I'd be very interested to hear your views on DIY Watch Club, on this watch, whether you've had any experience with them, whether you built any of their watches, whether you think they're a great idea like I do. So yeah, tell me your thoughts on that in the comments, please. Other thing to say, I've got a second channel, which is where I'm doing my watch reviews. It's called My Watch Reviews. Please subscribe to that channel if you are interested in seeing some of my vintage watches being reviewed and some of the modern stuff also being reviewed, because I'm trying to grow that channel and I could do with some more of you guys coming on board and taking a look at what I'm doing over there. So there'll be a link down below for that one. Lastly, look after your health, guys. For the regulars, you know that I've had prostate cancer this year. It's a very close subject to my heart now, and I want to try and make as much awareness of it as possible. I will be giving you an update on how I am, because I'm doing quite well, and I've got something coming up that I want to share with you as well on that. So yes, look after your health, because only you can do it. No one else is going to do it for you. Make sure you're having regular checks and certainly having a blood test called a PSA for prostate cancer. I'll be back very soon. I've got some great watches coming to the channel, actually, including a genuine Seiko Willard with a great story from a chap that I met in hospital. And I'm just waiting for him to email me some details so I can tell his story and get the watch running, because that one is going to be really exciting. I want to do it next, but it's only if I can get the stuff in time. If I can't, I've got a drawer here absolutely full of watches, and I'll pick another one of those. So stay tuned for that. I'll see you in the next video very soon. Bye for now.